We'd hiked that section of the Appalachian Trail a dozen times. Same switchbacks, same mossy outcrops, same white blazes on the trees like watchful eyes guiding us home. That's why we all stopped when we saw the brown sign, Cold Spring Spur, 1.7 miles. Scenic overlook. None of us had ever seen it before. Kai swore it had to be new. Mara said maybe we'd just never noticed it. I touched the wood, it felt wrong. Not weathered like the other signs. Not new either. The grain was swollen and soft, like it had been soaking in something other than rain. We should have checked the map. Instead, we followed it. The path was narrow but clear, bending off from the main trail like a shy invitation. At first it felt normal, crunch of leaves, distant crows, wind moving through hemlocks. But after 10 minutes, I realized we hadn't seen a single blaze since turning off. Strange they wouldn't mark a spur, I said. Kai laughed, but it sounded forced. Maybe it's unofficial. That's when the woods went quiet, not the usual lull. Not wind dying down. It was a layered silence, heavy, like the forest was holding its breath. No birds. No insects. Even our footsteps seemed swallowed before they could echo. The trail sloped downward, though I didn't remember any overlooks in the hollows. The trees grew closer together, trunks twisting in ways that didn't seem natural. I caught myself thinking they were leaning toward us. Watching, Mara stopped. Do you smell that? Damp earth, yes, but underneath it, something metallic. Like pennies. Like blood. We turned to go back. There was no trail behind us, not hidden. Not missed. Gone. Where our footprints should have been stood a wall of briars and saplings, dense and tangled, as if it had been growing undisturbed for decades. Kai swore and pushed into it. Thorns tore at his sleeves. He came back pale, shaking his head. That's not possible. Then we heard it, footsteps. Measured. Slow. Circling, not crashing through brush, just deliberate steps, just out of sight. We called out, thinking maybe another hiker had seen us wander off. The only answer was a low murmur, like voices speaking underwater. The brown sign stood ahead of us again, Cold Spring Spur, 1.7 miles. Scenic overlook. We hadn't turned around, it was just there. The arrow now pointed deeper into the trees, where no path existed. Beneath the carved letters, fresh gouges cut into the wood, 3 tally marks. Mara started crying. Kai insisted it was a prank, some elaborate backcountry art project. I wanted to believe him. Then we saw the white blaze, painted on a tree ahead. Except it wasn't paint, it was bone, a long, pale strip embedded into the bark, shaped like the marker we trusted. Something dark dripped slowly down the trunk. The footsteps stopped behind us. When we turned, shapes moved between the trees, tall figures bending wrong at the joints, limbs too long, heads tilted as if listening to something inside our skulls. Their skin, or bark, hung in strips, and their eyes were the empty white of trail markers. One of them raised an arm and pointed toward the sign, 1.7 miles. It never changed. We ran, the forest stretched, folded, repeated. Every direction led to the same sign. Every tree wore a white mark. The tally marks kept increasing. For 5, 6, after that, the counting stopped meaning anything. We don't talk about how long we've been walking now. The sun hasn't moved. It hangs crooked above the treeline, dull and swollen, like it's pinned there. My watch spins uselessly on my wrist, the second hand jerking backward before lurching forward again. Kai disappeared first. He froze mid-step and pointed ahead, smiling for the first time since we'd left the real trail. There. You see it? The blazes. I told you we'd loop back. I saw nothing but trees. He swore he did. He pushed through a thicket of laurel, branches snapping against his pack. We heard him crashing through brush, laughing, shouting back to us, "It's right here." Guys, it's the relief broke in his voice. We waited for him to come back through the trees, grinning, ready to tell us we'd been idiots for panicking. Kai? I called, no answer. Mara cupped her hands to her mouth. Kai! Stop messing around. We listened, nothing but the slow creak of trees shifting in a wind I couldn't feel. Kai! I shouted. That's not funny. We waited for footsteps. For a branch to snap. For his voice. Instead, the forest stayed still. After that, the silence felt different. Not empty, occupied. Mara's breathing turned sharp and uneven. She kept turning in slow circles. Like he might be standing just behind a trunk if she looked hard enough. He wouldn't just leave, she kept saying. I called his phone. It rang once. Then static. Then something like breathing before the line went dead. That's when the panic set in. We shouted together, desperate and raw, Kai. The name began to feel wrong in my mouth, like the forest didn't want to hear it. Minutes passed. Or hours. The sun didn't move. Mara started mumbling to herself, he's fine. He's fine. Over and over, like a charm. Then the words turned fragmented. She'd stop walking and tilt her head, listening to something I couldn't hear. They're helping him, she whispered once. Who? She didn't answer. She just cried quietly, shoulders shaking. Every so often a small, breathless laugh slipped out, wrong and hollow, and she'd clamp a hand over her mouth like she hadn't meant to make the sound. I grabbed her arm. We stay together. No matter what. She nodded. We started walking again, side by side. For a while, our shoulders brushed with each step. But somewhere along the way, I realized I wasn't holding her arm anymore. I couldn't remember when I'd let go. A few minutes later, she wasn't beside me. I spun around. She stood several yards back, staring at the ground. Mara? There, she said softly. He came this way. He left us signs. I saw only leaves and shadow. Mara, stop. She stepped between the trees like she was walking into fog only she could see. I lunged for her. My fingers closed on air. Mara. She didn't look back. I heard her pushing through brush for a few seconds. Then her voice, distant and small. Kai? Then nothing, no scream. No crash. Just that same suffocating stillness. Now it's just me. The sign stands in front of me again. Cold Spring Spur, 1.7 miles. Scenic overlook. 9 tally marks are carved beneath it. The wood looks wetter than before. The footsteps are closing in again, patient as gravity, circling just beyond the trees. Not rushing, waiting. I think the overlook is real. I just don't think it's meant for the living.